Cool. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So we're going to kick off our third community call here, and appreciate everybody taking the time to join us. So today we're going to just, we have some great stuff that we just released a few weeks ago. We're going to highlight some of the things that we are in the upcoming release. As well as talking about some of the roadmaps, some of the things that are coming out beyond the very next release. Our cycle that we've been releasing updates is anywhere from four days to 2 weeks or so. And we're going to also highlight some fun stuff here. We have Greg Unger on the call, and he's worked with a customer in the federal community to help bring simple chat data and stuff like that into Copilot, so you can be in the Copilot space. And he's going to demo that, which is really cool stuff. Yeah. Let's see here. Andrew's not hopped on yet.
No.
Okay. All right. That's okay. We also have Nathaniel Doyle with us here in the office. How's it going, Nathaniel? And we'll just jump into things. If anybody has anything as we're working through, going through, please just raise your hand. Say something in chat, and we'd be happy to answer those questions and talk to them. Oh, there's Andrew. Hey, Andrew, how's it going?
Hey everybody, sorry, a couple minutes late. I know you guys would be jumping right into it.
Yeah.
I don't want to, I think we have an hour today. Nothing really from my end, but I see some familiar faces in here and looking forward to today's updates. And I will also monitor chat for any questions and things like that.
Great. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, guys.
Jump in here. I'm going to use this as my, on the agenda here. We're going to walk through some of the stuff. One of the biggest things that we've been working on for this release is tabular analysis, the ability to really improve how we support tabular data. And what that means is the way we've supported tabular data in the past is we chunk every single row, we add it into the workspace, and for larger records, it can take 20, 30 minutes to process a tabular file, CSV, or a multi-tab Excel file. With the upcoming release, we're going to leverage, you have to enable enhanced citations. So there's going to be a few requirements. Right now, the UI on enabling this is a little rougher than it will be once we release it, but it requires enhanced citations. And that's because we're going to save the Excel file into the storage account. We're going to do some schema processing on it and save that in AI search. And then we use that schema analysis to then inform like a mini agent that's running that's processing tabular data. It has a whole lot of tools to summarize, to aggregate information, to query it, and we're using Pandas. So we're not developing our own Python on the fly, so we're not executing Python or anything like that. We've developed a bunch of tools using a Python library called Pandas that we've controlled and created in our agent, our action plugin and stuff like that. So you can control, again, how many tabular view, how many rows you can view at a time. And then right now it's going to require in this route before it releases, enabling this tabular processing. When it comes to release, we're also going to include a pop-up here and stuff like that to inform everybody of the latest features. So you'll get a pop-up after you deploy the latest release, and it's going to say, hey, we have tabular processing as a new capability. You already have enhanced citations, enabled. You can enable tabular real easy, or you have to enable enhanced citations, fill in this information, provide a storage account, and then you can enable tabular processing. So that'll be coming out here. So I'm just going to show what that looks like. Now, tabular processing, we've done a lot to help speed up performance. If it's a smaller CSV, it's going to do it quite quick. But if you have a lot of tabs and a lot of data, it can take quite a while. So, it can be anywhere from, 2 minutes to 8 minutes We've tested with Excel files that have 10,000 rows and 50 tab or 50 columns across 16, 17 tabs. So I'm just showing right here, this is one analysis of this Excel file, and this is a simulated treasury file of tax returns, taxpayers, employers, W-2s, estimated payments, audits, notices, installment, a whole bunch of information. Again, thousands of rows, for some of these, lots of columns, lots of taxpayers, say 5,000, asking questions like finding this taxpayer, getting this information, developing a risk on if they're going to return that payment. So it's having to, find a taxpayer, get information across, aggregate across all the tabs, and then leverage that to develop a default risk assessment. So, and this is, we've been testing with this one, but we're also testing with fake documents again that we've generated for with the FAA information. And I'll show, here's another one. And this was just a giant CSV, and this CSV is 10,000 rows in just one CSV and 50 columns. So it's looking through and helping answer questions like, latest short round trips for turnaround time. You're going to see a few errors in here. I should have pinned a few of these to make it a little bit easier to find them. Yeah. But again, tabular data is going to be really big. Now, the other thing we're adding in with this next release is called thoughts.
So let me talk about the tabular.
Yeah.
So with the tabular data, don't forget tabular data is not just your CSVs. All of your relational databases, your PostgreSQLs, your SQLs, even a lot of your structured data, those are all considered tabular format data. And because this new tabular data feature is coming out as a semantic kernel plugin, you will be able to add that plugin to your existing agents. So if they are dealing with that data, they will be empowered to have this same type of processing that you're seeing on this added to your being able to process over your live database data as well.
Yeah. Now here's another one, which routes carry the most passengers, looking through it, sorting them by, highest to lowest, number of passengers.
That's not a surprise at all.
Yeah. Thankfully, the simulated data worked out there. So again, with the simulated data, with the tabular data we're processing, and then we have this thoughts capability where it's going to go through and tell you what it did. So you get to go back, look over everything that it provided, every capability it did, whether it's searching the web. This is the latest news, went through, it always runs through content safety, searching the news, sending to the model, getting the model to respond. It's going to track that on all of them. Now, this is something that you have to enable.
Thoughts like a trace and foundry.
Thoughts are like a trace and foundry.
I
Yes.
say that I would say they're probably similar.
Yep. Okay, so this is in the AI models tab. Right now, it's sitting below the GPT model. You have to enable this. This creates a new container in Cosmos. So when it creates it, it's going to create it as the default. So you may want to go in there and update the scaling on it so it supports because it's going to be processing through a lot of information as it goes through. So I'm going to go to my portal real quick just so you can see some of this. So this is also, this isn't simple chat through the UI, but I think it's if you've deployed simple chat out there, it's really important to look at your Cosmos. Yeah, Cosmos is probably the limiting factor on performance right now. So if you're having things and they're not performing as you want, using this normalized RU consumption here is going to showcase how much. So you can see Thoughts is using 30% of what I get allocated it for it on consumption. So once this starts getting close to 90, 100%, that means you need to scale your RUs. I'm just going to show this. This ties into documentation and videos. We will be working on, getting videos out on scaling and stuff like that too. That's going to be a big push after this next release. So we have the thoughts container, scale and settings. Right now, mine is set to action manual. You can select auto scale, save it, and it'll update then from 100 to 1,000 because it's going to go to the minimum at the beginning. So that, if you're in a test development space, it's going to save you some costs based on the just outright 400. So you reduced your cost there by 75%, but it gives you room to scale up. So it could go up to 1,000. So it tells you over on the right what that cost range looks like. But if you have a lot of users that are leveraging it, it's really important to update these. Like some of my scales here are at 4,000 to make sure that the application is performing. Those are thoughts and process and tabular data. Some of the other things that are coming out here are, we showed export a little bit before, but there's an update to exporting documentation or exporting conversations. When you view the conversation history, now you have the ability to generate summaries. So you can create a summary of the conversation. Also, when you're exporting conversations, now there's a new option for PDFs, and you can package all of these up, download a single file, generate that summary on the fly. Now, right now, it's going to run through, it's going to create that summary. For one file, this isn't too bad. This is then what the PDF looks like. You can get an abstract. So it's a summary of the conversation, some information about it, and then the transcript of the conversation, and then appendices with material on, if you had documentation or search the web or anything like that, all that is going to show up under these appendices. Also for within the conversations themselves, we're adding the ability to now export. So you can export messages to Markdown. So now you can take that out. You don't have to just copy and paste it somewhere else. We have export also for Word. Of course, that erred on, that did work. Let me bring up one here.
So we've got pretty lucky with the live demo got so far.
Yeah.
So
here's a message export that we just ran right before this call. So again, it can create that conversation in Word for you. And this is the beginning for some other integrations with Word, further leveraging Word generation and editing and stuff like that. Also using this as a prompt, so it'll include it right here. And then one more here, opening an email. So, this, the message I have here isn't the best one, but imagine, let's ask it to there we go. So now we have that email. Now let's open that up email. Now we have this, gave us a subject line. We can, cut and paste that in. And now we have an email that we can send out to our team and stuff like that. Some of the other improvements here, on models, the ability to just, if you have a lot of them, to be able to search. Prompts is also, this was, limiting some, having a 10 limit per personal group and stuff like that. Now you can search, and that limit has been removed. So it's paginated as you scroll, or you can search through them. Also now on scope, let's open a new chat. On scope, you can search now as well. So if you have a lot of groups in here across the organization, I think, the groups, the way we don't do hierarchical permissions. So we have organizations that are creating groups per functionality or per team, instead of having one overarching group that then may, provides supporting organizations within it. You end up in this hierarchical permission structure that way. The reason we didn't go down that path is it starts to become really cumbersome in understanding who has permissions to what. Day one, you're okay. Day 300, it may be very difficult to understand which team has what. So by using this flat structure, you're able to really articulate who has permissions to what. And we have the ability to share files. So Group A can share files with Group B without giving them permission to Group A by everyone in Group B. And they can leverage that and they can see those files that way. So it gives you still that structure and control on the correct permission that you need. And it makes it easier to understand across the organization who has access to what. So it makes auditing and those kinds of things a lot more straightforward. We also added the ability last time in for bulk assignment of users. You can come in now and do assign bulk members, using a CSV. So you can upload that CSV. And it has the structure here. This example this is how you build it out. You just add their GUID, their display name, their email, and what role you want them. Then you upload that in, and it'll assign those users that capability. And that file can hold up to 1,000 users. Agent actions. Now let's go hop into agents. So on the agent side as well, we're adding some more views. With documents, we have the ability for tagging. We will be adding tagging to prompts as well. So that'll be coming not in the very next release, but that's coming, shortly after. We want to get tagging to be applied to prompts, to agents and actions as well. So you can search for them and leverage them, or, associate an agent with this tag that can then maybe only use this document that also has those documents that also have those tags, or just to be able to find your prompts. I've been using them more and more to do repeated testing, and it's really helpful.
Did we go over tagging last call?
Did we do tagging last
I
call?
don't think we.
Okay. Then
We
we'll
want to go over tagging because
we'll hop back into tagging after we look at agents here. So agents have a list view, but now we also have a grid view, very similar to the tag view. And then this will also pop into tags. We also have an agent read view now, so you can see what's going on with the agent without having to cycle through all of those tabs. And this just makes it a lot easier for users to understand what is this agent doing before they select it. And then you can select that to chat with it. And also down for actions, we've reduced the actions of SQL query action. Now, there used to be 2 of them there, SQL query and SQL schema. Those have been combined. So SQL is also performance and analysis and capability has significantly improved. I'm going to just bring this up here so we can look through one of them. So this is one of my SQL ones. This supports enterprise software asset management. It has 5 databases. It shows the description here, the configuration details. All of this now works. We also have a test connection button, so you can test it out. This is going to error because I have a firewall on, but this now shows, hey, is my SQL connected correctly? Instead of setting it all up and then going into the agent and chatting with it, you'll get a green here when this works out. You also get the control read only, or allow writes, and the max rows. So, leveraging these actions in this view is really helpful. We have agent templates, and this view has been updated as well. So users can create templates. Global admins can create templates. Users can submit their templates. When you use a template, what it does, it goes through and populates a name, a description, and the instructions. The user still has to select the action because they may need to create their own action.
Unless it's a global action.
Unless it's the global action, then it shows up. But if they want to connect to their own database using those same instructions or something similar to that, now they can connect to that database with their permissions, and now they have that agent. And we're just going to continue to iterate and refine this process of creating actions and agents, simplifying it, We're looking at other ways, like in the repo right now, we have some documentation on ServiceNow agent. So in the how-to, there's a ServiceNow section. And this was created by some member of the community on setting all this up, the API specs, the instructions, and everything like that to integrate with ServiceNow. Open tickets, there's a lot of different roles there to create tickets, manage tickets, ask questions on KPIs and everything like that. We'll be working on, having this documented as a video as well. So we're going to jump over into tags, just, make sure we cover that. So now in the tags, you can look at your files in the list view, you can see tags. You can select multiple files. We'll just redo some of these. That's a tag assignment, and then you can assign tags to those documents. Then when you have that, you have this tag, this grid view. That allows you to see all of your tags. This also allows you to manage your tags. So you can create new ones, change their colors and stuff like that. And with tags, you then get a list view of those tags. When you click on these, think of these as folders, a way to group your documents. And now you can ask questions against just that tagged group of material of those files. So it updates your tags. And now when you ask a question, it's going to just answer it against those selected tag, that, more narrowed filter. With that update, we also then provide the ability to select more than one file, or some subset as well from the documents you want to search. That also works with tags. So you can select multiple tags.
Tags also work across workspaces. So if your personal workspace and some of your groups, or you have multiple groups that share a singular tag name, filtering it down by the tag will actually work across those different workspaces as well, making it easy to filter those down.
Yeah. And the nice thing is, with that is the tags themselves aren't shared. So if you go into your group workspace, you're not going to see the tags that are in your personal. But if you select that, then they are, collected together in the chat UI so they can be leveraged. This also includes document classification now. So document classification is grouped together in tags. So then when you're in chat, if you want to use a document classification, then there's that second area underneath of it where you can then select just, the classified documents. And you can search across all of them or just, a few of them. Version, yeah, talking about SQL. All right, so that's what we have coming out in the very next release. I'm going to go to the repo real quick and look at the project timeline, the roadmap. So we have a lot of stuff in here in progress. This is around documentation and videos. This is going to be a big push. Along with this also is our deployment. Right now, the workflow for deploying requires some local setup for Docker and stuff like that. We're updating that workflow as well to build in your Azure Container Registry. So you don't need anything. The only thing you need next is just Python, and VS Code, and then it's going to deploy everything out. You'll need Azure CLI and the AZD as well, but it's going to deploy and execute and build everything in your Azure Container Registry and deploy it from there when you're deploying from scratch. We'll be adding support in there. We have greenfield deployment for VNets. We'll also be adding in brownfield, or the ability to at least modify those VNet addressing space so you can deploy it into your own VNets as well. I think let's see what, Greg, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Testing. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We're excited to see what you're going to share here, and take it away.
All right, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Greg Unger. I'm a Chief AI Architect at Microsoft, and up here to Paul and Nathaniel. I I have a deck, but we have very limited time. So I'm going to just show you 4 slides to give you a little bit of context of what I'm going to show you as a demo. And we're going to work through this fairly quickly. Everything I'm going to talk about revolves around what's called Model Context Protocol, MCP. Now, I'm not going to go into a deep dive of what MCP is. The expectation is that all of you are familiar with it on some level. In the end, it's a tool that AI can use as a shim to perform some function. That's not very detailed, but we're going to get into this and it'll probably make sense shortly. So the problem statement here is the simple chat information that you've loaded, the data, the files that you've loaded into simple chat, we want to democratize that data to other systems. MCP allows us to do that and allows us to associate that MCP tool to an AI to use a semantic interface to be able to access that information. So it doesn't have to be AI. You can write a custom application that utilizes the MCP server, but you can think of the MCP server as an external shim, basically that is able to call the simple chat API and taking the UI out of the equation entirely. Now, why might we want to do that? I might want to be able to surface data from simple chat in Copilot 365 or really any other application that allows me to either use MCP or to wrap MCP and MCP server as an agent in the Microsoft ecosystem. So as you can see here, there's a certain problem. We have siloed data. You don't want to keep switching between multiple tools. You might have an existing interface. And by interface, I mean a custom website, a mobile application. You might want to be able to use this tool, MCP tool, through an agent in Facebook, in Microsoft Teams, 365 Copilot, including SharePoint. You may want to surface this tool in SharePoint. And again, when I say tool, I mean the MCP server itself. But in order to surface it in SharePoint, we're going to wrap it in an agent to make it accessible to the Microsoft ecosystem. So really high level, what is MCP? Again, I'm not going to go into this. This is something that the expectation you're familiar with it, or you can do additional research after the demo. But in the end, the big thing that I want you to understand is that it's a tool. It can be used by AI, or it can be called really by anything, including custom code. It supports HTTPS, so we have a high level of security. The server that I'm going to show you uses a newer construct called PRM authentication that allows us to do single sign-on or on behalf of flows. So whichever end client you're using, if you're logged into that end client, then theoretically that credential will be passed through to the agent, to the MCP server, and then in the end to the simple chat application that's running that we're accessing. Again, a lot of that I realize might be sort of complicated, but we'll share some information after this meeting as well, and you can do some additional research in the end. My solution basically shows an MCP server, which is its own little application or API interface. I'm going to show you it running in Azure Container Apps. My end instance of Simple Chat that it interacts with also is running inside of a container inside of Azure Container Apps. Just sort of the overall ecosystem, the landscape topology here. This is what it looks like. We're using Entra ID. Choose your own MCP client. I'm running the MCP server, which is custom code written in Python. It's interacting with the Simple Chat API on the back end, which is then connected to Cosmos DB. Okay, let's get into it. So I'm proving here on this screen that I'm running the MCP server as a container app, and I'm running an instance of Simple Chat in a Azure Container App as well. Here, I have the actual app registration in Entra that Simple Chat's using. Now, I overloaded this app registration. So I could also use my MCP server. In the end, best practice would dictate that you're going to create a separate app registration for your MCP server to run to identify it, separate than the simple chat app registration. But you can know for simplicity's sake that you could reuse the same app registration for both. That's the only takeaway from this screen. So let's go in. The MCP server that I had, in order to expose it to Copilot 365, to SharePoint, to Microsoft Teams, has to be wrapped in an agent wrapper. Now, we can do that in the low to no code environment that is Copilot Studio. Okay, that's different than Azure Foundry, which Azure Foundry is the construct or the platform that you would use if you wanted to use more code advanced agent configurations. But Copilot Studio is we can get up and running very quickly in under like 5 minutes. Again, the MCP server is actually running as a container app, and then we're creating the agent in Copilot Studio to point to that Azure container app, which again is just an API. So when you're accessing any of the tools in an MCP server, these are just REST calls in the end. And we're using PRM authentication that allows for single sign-on. So I'm going to show you this interface, and then we're going to get into Copilot really quick. Here, I've created a simple chat assistant. I've created some instructions to help it, to help identify the agent itself. I've given it a description. I've picked an AI model here. You can choose your own favorite model. You'll see that under tools, I am now pointing to that MCP server because I'm adding it as a tool to this agent. Okay, from there, I'm going to just show you the fact that once you wrap the MCP server as an agent, it can now be published to all of these different channels. So if you have existing SharePoint sites you want to publish it to, custom web applications, mobile applications, Teams and Copilot 365, which is basically the demo I'm going to show you, or anything else that you see here, it's dealer's choice. You can make simple chat data accessible to any of this stuff. And again, just the MCP server alone, if you didn't have the agent wrapper, you could make the MCP server available to any client that supports MCP, or custom clients that you can build in a matter of minutes in Visual Code. So what I'm going to do really quick is I am going to send a couple commands here so I can sort of show you how it works here. And I'm doing that here first because it's a little more detailed in the way Copilot Studio operates when it executes the agent, which is then executing the tool. Like if I needed to see debugging, if I wanted to see a raw form of what's coming back, once the MCP server calls the simple chat API, I'd rather do it here because I'm going to get much more detailed information here. And theoretically, if I wanted to do testing, tracing, I'd want to do that here in Copilot Studio before I released it to my M365 Copilot. So I have a certain number of tools that are available to the Simple Chat Assistant via the MCP server, and I can come in and I can look at the different tools. What I like to do, and basically all I'm doing here when I'm testing this agent, which is solely using the MCP server behind the scenes, I like to add help as a tool. So I added a little help system, so I can just type help now. It's going to tell me the different tools that are available and basically how to access things. Now, because I'm using PRM authentication, I want to make sure that I'm logged in as who I think I'm logged in as. So I can check OAuth login status. These are custom tools that I created. Again, it's dealer's choice. You can do anything you want here, but I like to have a high level of certainty and traceability and the ability to debug. So I'm adding these additional tools to sort of give me optics into how the MCP server is running, the context it's running in, etc. Okay, so it looks like I'm logged in fine. I'm logged in using my Greg Unger credential. I'm going to show the user profile to give myself extended information. Again, this is a dealer's choice type tool. You'll see that the raw response coming from Simple Chat and the MCP servers on the left-hand side. But now I basically verified that I'm using PRM authentication. I'm verifying the account and what have you. Okay, now real quick. This is where we're actually interacting with Simple Chat. The stuff I showed you about the user profile theoretically is basically my profile with regard to the user that's connected to Simple Chat and that the MCP server is using. But now when I'm listing personal prompts, this is the same thing as if you were in the Simple Chat UI, clicking on links in the UI and you wanted to see your personal prompts that you had set up. Now I give you the ability to surface that data through the MCP server. So then again, you can have an agent wrapper, plug it into anything in the Microsoft ecosystem, or dealer's choice. You could use something like Claude Desktop. You could load your MCP server in Claude Desktop, and through a semantic interface, you could now access your Simple Chat data. So this is coming directly through the Simple Chat API, pulling from the Cosmos database to show me that I have a prompt set up. Now, I'm not going to prove that, but the reality is if I pulled up the Simple Chat UI right now, you'd see that same prompt was already created in Simple Chat. I'm going to do the same thing with list personal documents. And again, this is an accelerator and a demo sort of POC, so I didn't add a lot of prompts, a lot of documents. I just wanted to show you that it works. So here again, I have another document that I loaded in Simple Chat under my personal container there, and now I can surface that document's information here through the MCP server. The last thing that I'm going to show you here, and then we're going to go to Copilot 365, is I can do searches. So I can search through my personal documentation. It's going to give me a formatted response here, and it's going to order basically where it's finding that query in the different documents that I have available in Simple Chat. Now, I'm just showing you a couple basic tools. The reality is anything that the UI can do with regard to accessing the backend Simple Chat API and surfacing your data, you can also recreate to allow the MCP server to surface that data as well. So you can bring your own UI UX. Again, whether it's desktop, web, mobile, it doesn't matter. Anything that's callable via that backend Simple Chat API is callable by the MCP server. So you'll see here's my result. And this is basically all the different documents where it's finding Sinhi, that keyword, and it's ordered. Now, I'm generating this response. So again, it's dealer's choice. It's up to your creativity, how you want to respond, the information that is included in the response, whether it ranks stuff like, giving it a score, what have you. But this search is directly calling the Simple Chat API. So you can bulk this up. You can do anything you want. It's custom code running inside the MCP server. Okay. And I apologize again. We have limited time here, so I'm talking really fast and I'm going through this really fast. But if you have questions after the fact or need help, we can always provide that later on. I'm also going to tell you that this MCP server demo is not included in the development or production branches of Simple Chat. At some point it may be. It isn't now. We're going to get this stabilized and hardened, and then we'll give it to you as an example or accelerator for you to be able to extend. So here in my demo, what I did is I came in and I said, okay, I want to export this agent and make it available to my Teams and my Microsoft 365 Copilot. Once I did that, it publishes, and then it makes that agent available to, let's say, Copilot. So I want to basically show you it executing inside Copilot. This is M365 Copilot. It's the same thing that's running as a desktop app. If you're part of the Microsoft ecosystem itself, I'm showing you the browser version of it. But the reality is I'm just coming into apps here. I'm finding the app because now I've exposed the app, or really agent. So they keep overloading the terms here. The agent's the same thing as an app. So when I was in Copilot Studio and I published the agent to the Teams Copilot 365 channel, it surfaces that agent as an app in M365. I come in here, I add that app, I make it available, and now it's the same thing as running it in Copilot Studio, where I can come in and I can say, help. So I'm going to apologize. There's a little bit of latency because it's a test tenant here. And there's a bunch of stuff going on. There's a little bit of a cold start penalty as well. But you'll see that the app in Copilot 365 is executing the agent that we created in Copilot Studio. And the agent is wrapping the MCP server, which is my custom MCP server running in Azure Container Apps, which is then accessing this simple chat API. So we just did the help. We see that that's working. I'm going to come down here. Help basically tells you how to use things. Let's check the OAuth login status. So understand that I'm logged in here in Copilot 365. That's the same login I'm using for the simple chat application itself. So I want to use on behalf of authorization authentication or single sign-on basically here. So from the end client, I'm single sign-on all the way across the board, from the app to the agent to the MCP server, all the way into simple chat itself. I'm verifying it. I'm verifying that I'm using PRM authentication. Now let's take a look at the user profile. Again, the same tool calls that I was making in Copilot Studio, but now I'm doing it in Copilot 365. And if I wanted to, I could expose that agent inside your SharePoint or any number of SharePoints and make all of your simple chat data available, democratized for any application that you want. So that worked well. Let's list personal prompts. And give it a second. Okay, personal prompts, good to go. And again, you can return bigger prompts. Like there's no limitation here. You can add paging. So if you had 10,000 prompts and you only wanted to return, the top 20, or if you wanted to filter the prompts, that's no problem. That's just custom code running inside the MCP server that is then handshaking with the backend simple chat API. Dealer's choice, again, for whatever you want the MCP server to do. I'm trying to make this really simple and not overloading the MCP server with a lot of logic, because I want you guys to be able to use this as an accelerator. And the more complex and complicated the MCP server to begin with, the harder it is to understand and to ramp up. And I want you to be able to ramp up really quickly. So I kept it simple. So here's the personal documents, and let's see one more. We'll scroll down there just so you can see the end of the results. Now I'm going to search. And again, we're getting the exact same responses as Copilot Studio. But remember, you saw in Copilot Studio that it was a little more robust with regard to tracing and debugging. And you could actually run tests or what are called evaluations against the agent, which is then using the MCP server as well. So there's a high level ability to debug and to trace before you actually expose this out to Copilot 365 to basically everybody in your organization. And when I say that, you can limit it to just certain groups of people or certain people in a canary test type manner, or you can roll it out to the entire organization. But so now, here we go. Same thing there, and we're good to go. So I'm going to stop there because I know that I just threw an immense amount of information at you guys. But again, the big takeaway from here is that you're not limited with regard to simple chat and just using the UI to be able to surface that data. You can take your same data almost anywhere you want, whether it's a custom app or anywhere in the Microsoft ecosystem or anywhere outside of the Microsoft ecosystem that can utilize an MCP server. That's the end of the demo. Thanks.
That's great work, Greg. And I think it's, showing the MCP, this is the beginning part of how we, plan on leveraging MCP to bring together Copilot and Simple Chat. So, the goal there, organizations that are leveraging Copilot, and then organizations also that are leveraging, that might be in an air gap space or something like that, or another cloud, or, not another cloud, but like in a space that may have limited access or that does not have Copilot yet. There's ways to leverage this now to be able to integrate with Teams. But the purpose of providing that access into Copilot and Teams is so you can be working where you're already working 80% of the time. But with the data that you've leveraged and applied and added into Simple Chat, and you'll still jump over to the Simple Chat UI for more complex behavior and stuff like that. But you can be in Simple Chat or in Teams and Copilot to surface that information, integrate it and share it with your M365 information, and develop a more comprehensive workflow without having to also shift all that data that you're using that's on-prem into M365. It provides an easier path to help provide a comprehensive space for using AI to improve your workflow. And I think the Simple Chat Assistant is really important, so you can be in the Copilot interface itself without selecting the agent. You don't have to go select Simple Chat. You can add it, and then you can ask the question right there within that same conversation. And this is just the beginning. This is going to mature in a way to help organizations. You can lock this down to. So when you create that Simple Chat MCP server, you're going to get to control which services interact with it. It's not going to be an MCP server that is now just a vulnerability or an issue. You're going to control through your Simple Chat UI how to manage, what services can interact with it very explicitly. So, even if you stand it up and you have a peer or some other people in the organization that know how to use Copilot Studio, they're not going to just be able to create a connection to that MCP server without coordinating with you first and, and providing that access and stuff. And then that's also the first part of our MCP. We're going to be adding MCP. I'm going to share my screen here real quick on some of the things that are coming up after the things we were sharing there. I shared earlier. We're going to be adding MCP as an action. We have open APIs, we have SQLs, we have some database, we have Databricks, we have MS Graph. We'll be adding MCP in as an action as well. When that comes in, we'll be adding governance. So you're going to get the blacklist or whitelist URLs and that, so you can control how and what services your users or your groups can deploy, can connect to. We're also going to be adding a little bit more control. So global admins can create an agent, an action for a group, and then make it available for that group. So it's not available for everyone. They can create it on their behalf. And then, just again, the ability to control who can create agents, who can access them too. Right now, when you turn them on, it's available to everyone. If you're going to roll that out, we'll be adding ability to kind of whitelist that. So you have to remember, a group even within Simple Chat, even when you turn on agents, so it's not just available to everyone. Some of these other capabilities, notification, we're continuing to improve notification, imagine, doc or chat conversations. When you have a conversation that's taking a while, as you start working with agents, it's going to take longer for those responses. You can navigate away, be informed, and then return back, kick off multiple conversations at the same time. Maturing the MCP, Teams integration. We're also looking at file syncing, SMB shares, and NFS shares that are on-prem. So you can have that sync in your workspace, connect it to an SMB share that you have access to based on your permissions, and it'll sync in. You can even assign it tags and stuff like that. So that's something we may be sharing at the next community call, as well as integrating with Google Workspace. So imagine if you are using Google Workspace, you can sync that data as well in your workspace in Simple Chat, either for Teams or personal workspaces, or even the public domain ones. PII detection, This is, we're also getting more customers involved in writing code for Simple Chat. We'll be, and this is one of the things they're working on is PI detection with your own custom regex and key values, keywords that you can do that can look for them when you upload a file. Just, highlight it. And it doesn't have to block it, but just highlight it and then add a tag or something like that, as well as during chat. Full file return. We already have a lot of this stuff in there right now that when you ask a question, you get 12 results back. We're adding this capability, which then ties into document comparison, where you're going to get all the content from the file back. This is good for like audio transcriptions. So you can get all the entire transcription for a 20, 30-minute video. If you're using Zoom and you want to use Simple Chat to transcribe those videos, you'll be able to, it does it today, but you're searching against it. You can't get, it's a little bit difficult today to get all of the entire transcription. So we'll be adding support to get all that. We have the ability for speech and audio, so you can download the audio that was talked to you, when you're using that voice conversation. And then again, tagging across everything. Document comparison, similar to how we improved tabular analysis. Compare document A to document B. How does document A affect document B? We have version 1. How does version 2 different from version 1? So those tools will be coming in a similar way that we've added with tabular analysis. So that's a lot. Does anybody have any questions or any thoughts?
There's a question,
Yeah.
rough timeline on her first release for 240.x.
I'd say right now we're looking at, the next week or so. We're really far down the path there, showing on how that's working. We have some developers, some organizations that are testing it out. So if you want to use the thoughts and fixes branch, you could deploy that in your development environment today and test it out for us and give us some feedback on how it's working. So we're just going to work through that some more and improve that. But I don't see it being too much further out than 7-10 days. With that too, documentation wise, we're going to be adding in a contributor file in the README, improving documentation. So if you want to contribute, a little bit easier notification on how to do that organizationally with the, getting the code that you write back into Simple Chat to share with the entire everyone that's using it. James, your hand is up.
Oh, hey, Paul, how's it going?
Hey, James.
So I wanted to ask a question about the user lookup inside of groups, or just user lookups in general. So the way we do user accounts here, we do access packages, and we do access packages to allow flank speed identities into our Azure tenant, and those users end up, when you invite those users, they are set to guest users, and they're not an actual member of the tenant.
Okay.
So we've been experiencing issues with people who are guest users trying to look up into our tenant directory.
That's a good one. I know I'm going to cut you off. I cut you off a little bit there. We have had that. There is a permission, and I will share. I think we have it in our FAQ, but I will find that and I will share it. There's a permission you have to add, and you can do it during the access package request process, where you can assign that permission, essentially read permission over Active Directory, so they can then see.
Yeah.
But
I know that permission, but I know that it's at a Microsoft intra-level permission.
Yes.
It's not like a Azure RBAC role assignment.
Correct.
But you said you can add that at the access package.
Correct.
Oh, that's nice to know. I didn't know you can add at the access package level.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as long as you have a P1, you can, but I guarantee you want to be talking to me if you didn't at least have a P1. So,
That's good to know. Okay.
Yeah, so you can get in there and assign that role or that RBAC that permission, and then they can do that. The read, essentially have read over the tenant, so they can then search. Essentially, that allows them to search. We looked at changing the permission structure to assign it to the application itself but that then removed those granular access for users, so you can track and audit, those reads essentially. So we did not go down the path. But because of that, then we encountered some of these edge cases.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. That helps.
Yes, I'll
along.
share that with you. If you come across any issues, but thanks for sharing that, James.
Oh yeah, no problem.
I think that's a good T-shirt. License level to top the Paulizer equals P1.
P1. Robert.
Quick question on the GitHub repositories. Steve and I bailed on main, and he had me download development, and then we ran into a bug that he had to look at. He said he was going to have to tear down his lab and rebuild it to find it. Is there any movement either on that, or is main now? I think there was like a certificate issue that had expired or something. That's why I wasn't able to fully deploy the Docker in main. So I'm still kind of sitting idle.
Okay, I'm not sure about the certificate for the main one. The change that I'm making though to the deployment process, we're doing this in parallel. That probably even comes out sooner than this next release. I think it's going to clean up and solve a lot of these things, some of these user experience workflows for.
What code repository are you referencing? I guess that's my question.
Right now,
I click the down arrow on main, and then you have a.
Yeah, I don't have the deployment code yet. I do have there's a deployment -update branch that I pushed out. It is a little rough. I mean, it works perfectly for private or public endpoints, stuff like that. So you can deploy it and then privatize it yourself. So I'm working through it right now. You can select and define private networks a little bit easier and cleaner, both from greenfield, like there is no private network at all, and you just want to create it from scratch, or how do you set it up?
Yeah, I deploy everything public and go back in and lock it down.
Okay, yeah. So the deployment -update branch right now works with that. So if you use that one, it has improved instructions for README. It has some additional material in there for setting things up and also walking you through some questions to answer in a little bit cleaner way on because we also had some issues there on the models. Hey, I don't have global standard. I'm deploying it here, or GPT-4.1. So it gives you a little bit more options on the SKUs to pick and stuff like that too.
All right, so I'll download that and.
Yeah, and when you get in there, shoot me if you have any problems. Let me know, and we can work through that. On that process, the AZD up in there, I think, is working a lot better on a clean first pass on deploying things, because you don't need to manage as many local requirements now. So, and it's your feedback, and other feedback that we've received that's helping us improve that process. So, please share with us immediately. You don't have to, if you're coming across anything. Please let us know. You can email me directly. You can also email simplechat@microsoft.com, and that gets over to me as well, to the team. You can shoot me a message on LinkedIn, or create an issue on GitHub, and I'll see that immediately. Team will.
Cool. I know what I'm doing. I was just waiting on. I had just emailed him this morning, so I remembered I had this. So I'll run through it with the new I just downloaded that zip. For deployment updates and go from there. Okay.
Thanks, Robert. I see in chat here, deployment instructions. Yes, those are coming. A video with those deployment instructions, walking through the deployment process, and then deploying it. So the instructions will be coming, I'd say it's probably 4 or 5 days. Later next week, because it's using the existing code and stuff like that. It's really just the deployment process. And the workload for that right now. So AZD does work well, but then after that, so you do AZD up first, and then what do we do after that to keep updating and stuff like that? I like that one too. Yeah, we'll have updates. We'll have a follow-on video on, hey, we did up AZD up. Everything's up there. Now what do we do moving forward to keep the application updated? That's a nice thing by moving to Azure Container Registry and using containers. It's going to be really straightforward to make the next version deployment, to build that container right into ACR, and then select it. It's like a simple drop down. It'll select it and then execute, and you're really good. So we'll have videos on that, and there's that process for updating a lot more defined with this new workflow. Yeah, that's the current right now, like, yeah, requires the Docker and stuff like that to create a development image and stuff like that. We're getting rid of that workflow, so it's going to create it using ACR. You already have to deploy that. It's going to build it within the Azure Container Registry and then deploy it straight from there. So you don't need a lot of those local requirements that the current deployment process has. Bill?
Sorry for the.
Oh, you're a little quiet, Bill.
Sorry for the super basic question here, but when I've uploaded a file in my conversation without putting it in my personal group or another group, I'm not getting the model to respond to questions about that document. Is that getting vector embedded before in just into my chat? I'm assuming that it just stays live with the chat, and as long as I save the chat, it's going to save that document. So am I experiencing a bug that it's not seeing the content of a text file, for example?
Yeah, uploading the file straight to the chat extracts the content of it and then makes it available within that chat. For a text file, I can see that definitely with PDFs. The biggest things I've seen with the Word files or PDFs, sometimes they're locked by purview or classification, the RMS classification that Word files and stuff like that have if you're using OneDrive or SharePoint. Even locally with OneDrive, and you're saving that file with OneDrive. Sometimes those are at a classification level that doesn't allow other users, there's permissions on it. So when you upload it, it can't actually see the file. That is something we've had another organization talk to us about. We're looking at how we can integrate Purview and RMS into Simple Chat to decrypt those files when allowed, so you don't come across that. But for yours specifically, when you upload that file, if it's a PDF, it gets processed by Document Intelligence, and the content is then lives within that chat, so you can ask questions against it. If you're having an issue there, I would love for you to take some screenshots, share that with me, and we can see if it's every file type. And I'll do some regression testing too on mine, and we'll just have a conversation about it. You can email me or email simplechat@microsoft.com, and I'll be happy to do that. We want to make sure those bugs don't exist, and it's not something I've heard across the community. So maybe there's just something with your deployment, or there is a bug in there. We gotta fix that.
Great. Yeah, I think I've done it before and it was fine. So I'll have to make sure my text file was not empty as well, right? So
yeah.
Okay.
But I will test that out. This afternoon I'm going to test text files, markdown files, JSON, all the files we support. I'm going to go through. Something else we're doing, I know we're going over here. Greg Unger on the call, so he's still on doing the MCP. He was also showing us some great stuff around Playwright workspace. So there's this way Playwright is a way to interact via the browser with applications. So you can do UI essentially testing with Playwright. I'm toying with the idea. We're looking at adding in Playwright workspace to our CI/CD to start testing features during the deployment process, going from development to staging to main. It's a lot for our team right now to kind of test everything out completely. Playwright is always going to automate a lot of that stuff. When you go from development, into staging, it can go through a 36-hour Playwright test, that's going to go through and evaluate everything that we know. Something else I'm going to look at doing too is creating videos from Playwright to also, for new features and stuff like that. But we're going to improve our end-to-end workflows with Playwright. So I appreciate bringing that up, Bill. It just kind of re-clarifies and, makes, that we have to improve our processes for making sure these features are working every time. So thanks for sharing that, Bill. And please keep in touch with me. I'm going to go test, validate, and if there's anything going on there, there'll be an emergency release how to fix that one, because that shouldn't be happening.
Great, thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Ben. Does anybody else have any other questions? I appreciate everybody's time today. Really cool stuff, I think, on the horizon. We've got some great stuff we shipped out. Really cool stuff coming out in the near term as well. Your guys, the organization, the community's requests and features, our conversations for myself and the team, other Microsoft personnel that are working with your teams to deploy and leverage Simple Chat, it helps define what we do. And we're going to continue to work on, update cycles anywhere from 2 days, 4 days to 2 weeks to get features out quickly, more complicated ones on the longer horizon, and simpler ones on the short term, and just keep getting this stuff out, improving documentation, as well as pop-ups and information in Simple Chat after you deploy to let you know what the newest features are and how to enable them. So that one will be coming. I'm going to show that will be coming with the next release. After you deploy and upgrade, go to admin settings. There's going to be a pop-up that's going to show you what the latest features are and how to enable them and stuff like that. Thanks all. I appreciate your time today. I appreciate sticking over the call. And look, the next one will be, let's see, what's 6 weeks out?
April 30th.
April 30th. Yeah, the next one's April 30th. And look forward to that. If you already registered, you don't have to re-register. You'll just get the new invite. Thanks all.
Thanks.
Thank you.